points to go through today. Finish topic 7. I want to hand out assignment 3. We'll start topic 8. Maybe we'll do the water part. I'm not sure how far we'll get with all that. And then the reminder is that assignment 2 is due today. I think I checked and 5 people have handed in so far. So I imagine everyone's scrambling to get those last minute details in and all that, which is totally fine. So yeah, looking forward to see what you've learned. And I know I've talked to a couple people about it, and I know it's like 3 days, by the way, is a very inaccurate snapshot of your life. Okay, so just keep that in mind, right? You know, yesterday somebody in my house made cookies, and I ate about 4 of them. It's not a normal day for me. Maybe you had unnormal days. Maybe you did your thing over the break when you're just sitting around doing nothing, eating junk food. I'm not going to judge anybody. Okay, so it's not a big deal. But if you are interested in this kind of thing, I encourage you to track your diet for, try a month, 6 weeks, something like that, and you will learn quite a bit. It's a pretty interesting experience. I did that for about 4 months a couple of years ago, and it was very interesting, particularly just learning about different foods in general, in terms of where I'm deficient, or why some days that I blow way past that calorie requirement, and the answer is croissants. I mean, who can't just sit down and eat like 3 or 4 of them really easily? Okay, so back to what were we talking about? Vitamins, right? So let's talk about vitamin E. Vitamin E has a reputation for quite a number of things. One thing that I've noticed in particular when I'm walking to the pharmacy is skincare products seem to have a lot of vitamin E in it. And so let's talk about that a little bit. It's found in a lot of different foods, particularly dark green vegetables and things like that. And it's one of these vitamins that it's really rare for people to be deficient, or for people to kind of hit toxic levels. That's not usually a very common thing to deal with. Well, there we go. So here's some of the functions of vitamin E, though. Okay, and take a look at that first one. This is what we're going to talk about a little bit in general. You can see it says protects our cells against damage from free radicals. So if you want a chemistry lesson, drop by my office. I'll explain to you exactly what a free radical is. It'll take a little bit of time. But basically what it is a very reactive chemical that you don't want in your body, because it's going to damage things. And I'll talk about that in a minute in terms of kind of how that works. But free radicals are made all the time. Sometimes it's from ultraviolet light. Sometimes it's from reactions in our own cells. Sometimes they're just byproducts. And they're the kind of things that we want to prevent having in our tissues, because damage to our tissues is bad, particularly if that damage is to your DNA. That can lead to things like cancers and whatnot. So you may hear about all sorts of foods being antioxidants, or how they scoop up free radicals. I think about 5 years ago, I remember blueberries were the superfood that apparently will do all that for you. And they do have pigments in there that will do some of the same effect in your body. But that's kind of one of the big functions of vitamin E. It's involved in development of your nerves. It's involved in blood clotting. You can see it says preventing clots from forming in blood. So it thins your blood a little bit in that it's like blood clotting is one of those things, right? It's a very particular thing, right? You want it to work extremely well when you need it, but you don't want it to kick in when you don't need it, right? So vitamin E is sort of an inhibitor of blood clotting. And in fact, if you have too much of it, that may actually be a problem, in that you're going to, your blood's going to be too thin and it's not going to clot in time. But that's kind of what it does. You can see it has roles in the immune system, and I think I mentioned nerves as well, yeah, and red blood cells, of course, right? What was I going to say else about vitamin E? Oh, okay. So this is what the textbook is trying to explain what is going on with free radicals. So free radicals, like I said, are really reactive chemicals, and they're very good at, unfortunately, making more free radicals. So that's what they're trying to show with these dominoes. Is you can imagine this reactive chemical, and then it attacks another chemical, and then it just keeps on going and going and going, right? And that's kind of what a free radical does. Like I said, if you want a chemistry lesson, you can come drop by my office, and I can explain to you sort of how they work. They're kind of cool, but this is something that we do want to prevent. And so vitamin E can react with the free radical and kind of stop it in its tracks. And there's a number of different terms for that. The term that is usually used in nutrition is antioxidant. And like I said, this is all over our body. These kind of things are made just kind of randomly from time to time. There's certain reactions that are more likely to make free radicals. Ultraviolet lights can do that in any tissues that are exposed to the sun. And we want to kind of stop these things because we don't want to have lots of damage. And particularly, like I said, we don't want to damage our DNA. Of course, DNA is good for us, and we don't want cancer, right? So I don't know if this is why it's added to a lot of skin lotions and treatments. I'm still trying to fully understand the connection there. I think there's also connection in terms of believing it's going to help you heal faster and whatnot. And there might be a little bit of research on that, but I'm not actually really sure about that connection entirely. It's just something that I've noticed. So something I'll have to look into in the future. So what are our daily recommendations on this? 1,000 milligrams is the max. 15 milligrams is about there, right? So a lot of the vitamins you can see around 15 milligrams is kind of one of those numbers that is out there. Like I said, usually most people deficiency or toxicity levels are really very, very rare. Unless somebody's popping these pills like crazy, that doesn't usually happen. Because if your daily recommended dose is 15 milligrams, if you take a vitamin E tablet, it's probably going to be about 15 milligrams. So how many of those would you have to pop to get up to 1,000? Right? So that's a lot. It's like, well, divide 1,000 divided by 15. It's not 100, but maybe it's about 75 or something like that. And nobody's going to take 75 tablets, I hope. What kind of foods are we talking about? Like I said, a huge variety of foods, plants, animal foods, those kind of things. I know there's certain green leafy vegetables. I think I got the slide here that from the textbook. So you can see they're talking about some of those, a number of vegetables there. And liver is probably down here somewhere. It seems like liver has everything. Oh, I didn't realize eggs as well. So notice this, it says animal fats almost have no vitamin E, so it's usually other parts of the animal, right? Okay, so that's vitamin E. It's not working well today. There we go. Okay, let's talk about vitamin K. Okay, vitamin K is the last fat-soluble vitamin we want to talk about. And vitamin K is also found in green leafy vegetables. So, you know, if you like green leafy vegetables, this is all good news for you. The other interesting thing that I know about vitamin K is that there is another source in your body for vitamin K, and that is your bacteria that are in your gut. They make vitamin K. That's good for you. One of the reasons why we want to harbor certain bacteria in our gut. So E. coli, for example, makes vitamin K. Not usually enough for you, but it supplements your diet anyway. So what are the functions? So vitamin E was thinning the blood and preventing blood clotting. Vitamin K does the opposite. It helps blood clotting, right? So like I said, blood clotting is one of these interesting phenomena where we want to have it happen exactly when we need it and never any other time. And so having these two vitamins kind of help balance that out, right? So that you can hit that right level of blood clotting. So if you don't have enough vitamin K, then your blood is not going to clot very well and you may bleed a little bit extra. So one thing to know about vitamin K is that newborn babies don't usually have any right away. And so this is something that if you have a baby, they will get often on the first day of that baby being born, they give it a little injection of vitamin K. And this is just kind of, you know, it's going to take a few days before that vitamin K is going to build up in the baby's body from breastfeeding or formula feeding. And so this is to kind of, you know, give them a little jump start on that. And the main reason is so that they don't bleed or hemorrhage, and that their blood will clot properly. And there's actually a lot of research to show that this does help, and so it's pretty much standard nowadays, is giving your baby a little injection of that. And they usually do it in the foot. I don't really know why they do that in the foot. Maybe because it's big and fleshy. I don't know. Babies are very small, right? Another one also involved in bone formation. So for bone formation, vitamin K and D are the big ones. Vitamin D carries calcium, and vitamin K, I think it has a lot to do with the proteins in the bones. Bones are not just calcium, they do have proteins in there that are part of the modeling. What else was I going to say about vitamin K? So deficiencies aren't that common. Like I said, newborns are kind of the biggest risk category, and we can prevent that by just giving that whole injection on the, once they're born. The other thing I was going to say about them is that if you are vitamin K deficient, which does happen sometimes, you might be also more likely to bruise and like I said, excessive bleeding and whatnot. So what food? Vitamin K, dark vegetables is the big one. You can see broccoli and Brussels sprouts. Who likes Brussels sprouts? I cannot stand them. But I love broccoli, right? And I was actually reading about this, and there's different, like, people have different genes in terms of what's going on with their tongue. I was actually listening to a really fascinating podcast where there's this chemical that's in broccoli, and some people can taste it, some people cannot. So the people who can taste it hate broccoli, right? And they actually took a glass of water and put the chemical in, and they had genetically tested some people, and they knew ahead of time who was going to hate it. The people who like broccoli, it just tasted like water, and the people who hated broccoli, they're like, oh, this is awful. And so I'm convinced that's what's going on with Brussels sprouts. Everyone in my family loves them. I can't even be in the room when they're cooking. But broccoli I love. So there's something in broccoli that I don't mind, but something in Brussels sprouts that I can't tolerate. Anyway, they're cute. Brussels sprouts are cute. I don't mind them for that reason. So what food are we talking about? All the green vegetables and not much else. So, this is something that you can't get from animal sources typically, and that's vitamin K. But there's something else I was going to say about vitamin K. I think I mentioned toxicity is really rare, but in some cases it has been reported, and because it's helping blood to clot, it can actually form blood clots that you don't want, right? And that's a big deal, because blood clots that you don't want, that could mean stroke or heart attack or, other parts of your body. I don't know what it's called, but that's bad, right? Okay, so I think, there we go. Okay, we're going to do our food tomorrow. I had to tweak it slightly because I knew it was going to put a little bit later. Okay. Okay, there it is. I'll give you guys just a minute to join. All right, give it about 10 more seconds. I think the code is always at the bottom of the screen if you do miss the joining screen. Okay, here we go. Question 1. A vitamin is defined by which of the following characteristics? And the correct answer is indispensable. What were the other ones? Non-essential is that vitamins are definitely essential. Inorganic, they are organic. Okay. Again, a little chemistry for you. Organic does not mean you're gardening without pesticides. But chemistry, organic means it has carbon and hydrogen. So they are organic, meaning they're not minerals. Really, is what we're talking about. Needed in large amounts, definitely not. So green is the right answer. Okay, question 2. Which substance is required for fat-soluble vitamins to be used? Hey, not too bad. A couple people picked them with the green one. What's the green one? Cholesterol. That's not a bad guess. So we need bile to absorb fat, and to absorb the fat, or in the fat, is going to be things like fat-soluble vitamins. What's this doing here? Oh, did I not hit next? Okay, Nat, let's see if you can hold on to this. Close run. Number 3, in what process does vitamin A play a critical role? Okay, the correct answer is reproduction. It is essential for the fetus, for development of the fetus. And so that's why reproduction is correct. That was a hard one. I'm going to throw a couple hard ones in there. Okay, number 4, which vitamin can be obtained entirely from non-food sources for some people? Correct answer is vitamin D, right? It's even in yellow for sunshine. There we go. So I can't remember if I mentioned last day, for vitamin D, it's potentially the most toxic one to have at high levels. But as far as I can tell, and from what I've read, is you cannot get toxic amounts of vitamin D from getting too much sun. Okay, your body won't convert. It takes cholesterol, converts it through a couple of intermediates, eventually gets to vitamin D. When you have enough of it, your body will stop that conversion process. The excess sun will just give you a tan or wrinkles or cancer. Okay, someone's on a hot streak here. That's good. Okay, number, I don't know, which of the following individuals should take a vitamin D supplement? Okay, so that's a hard one. Let's just go through the answers here for a second. So formula-fed infant, not necessary. Formula has vitamin D in it. It's fortified vitamin D. It's a breastfed infant is the one during the winter months that it's recommended to take a vitamin D tablet. The other two, 18-year-old, what does this one say? 22-year-old are probably in good shape with their diet. It's the elderly people that need a higher amount of vitamin D and they also eat less and so are more risk of being deficient. Okay, last one. Which of the following foods is a significant source of vitamin D in Canada? Okay, so the correct answer is milk. So I always remember that one because my mother would always say, drink your milk, it's good for your bones, it has lots of calcium and vitamin D in it. So constantly she would say that, so I will never ever forget. All right, so what we really want to know is who is the winner. Did Natalie finally come through? Catherine with the bronze. Go Leafs, go. Leafs actually winning. And Jess, okay. Okay. Okay, so back to the vitamins. We're going to talk about these water-soluble vitamins, and we're going to burn through them relatively quickly. There's a couple I'll talk about in a bit more detail. But you can see this B vitamin group. We can almost, in many ways, kind of group them all together, which is handy because they're all B vitamins. So we'll talk about vitamin C first, though. Okay, but all these are water-soluble vitamins. And so what that means compared to the fat-soluble vitamins is that you don't necessarily have to have them in your diet every day, the fat-soluble vitamins, because you can store them up in your body. The water-soluble vitamins, the amount stored in your body is very small. So it's kind of important to have them in your diet a lot more regularly. Usually it's not a big deal, Deficiencies are rare in many cases unless you're having a really restrictive diet. So you see certain vitamin B deficiencies, for example, in developing countries where I think I had mentioned, last day you might have in some places people are eating basically rice 3 meals a day because they're very poor. Rice is very cheap, and they're not getting a lot of other food in their diet and those kind of things. What else is I going to say about these things? Toxicity, it's not even worth talking about. There are studies like in rats where they give them toxic levels, but in most cases, these are the levels are so high, it doesn't make any sense that you would ever see these kind of things in humans. Deficiencies, like I said, are also relatively rare in Canada, just because we have lots of food and lots of variety in general. But you do see it sometimes in certain populations, like I think I'd mentioned alcoholics in many cases are often vitamin deficient. Just a personal story, I had an uncle who was quite the alcoholic, and I met him when I was about your age and visited his house, and I never saw him consume any solid food ever over 3 days, right? And I was like, what is keeping this guy alive? And this is one of these cases where, like, my aunt was the most angelic person I'd ever met, and I figured love was keeping him alive because I had no other explanation. But anyway, it was kind of sad. Okay, so let's talk about these water-soluble vitamins here. So vitamin C is the one that lots of people love to talk about, and lots of people know a little bit about it. If you don't get enough of it, what are you going to get? Anyone know? Scurvy, yes. So there's always these jokes about, university students getting scurvy and whatnot. I don't know if that's urban myth or not, but in theory, if you're not getting any fruit or juice or anything like that, you could, in theory, become deficient, right? So what is vitamin C doing? A whole bunch of things, okay? Vitamin C is also an antioxidant, kind of similar to vitamin E. You can see right here, talking about the free radicals again. It has a bunch of roles in all sorts of enzymes. So a lot of vitamins, this is kind of what they do, right? They join with enzymes to help make the enzyme complete and do its function. And so this probably has at least 100 known functions. The biggest one that we know a lot about is this one here, that it helps to make collagen. And that has the link with scurvy, because that's the most noticeable effect if people are vitamin C deficient. Now, some people in Canada may become slightly deficient, so they're not necessarily getting scurvy, but maybe their skin is a little bit more fragile and things like that. So I think I talked about collagen before. It's kind of like one of the most abundant proteins in your body by far, and it's in all your connective tissues, so skin and bones and teeth and gums and epitheliums and those kind of things. And it's kind of a rope-like structure, kind of stretchy with a little bit of elasticity to it, right? So something, if you have a good, healthy amount of collagen in your body, your skin is kind of, nice and bouncy and those kind of things. And you may notice that elderly people, their skin is not as bouncy, or it just seems more fragile. And that's something that happens, when you're about 20. When you're about 20, it's all downhill. You start making less and less collagen, right? And by the time you get into your later years, your skin is a lot more fragile because your body just doesn't produce quite as much. Question? Yes. I have no idea. That's one thing I don't know about it. My thought is that how is that going to help you? Because it's going to go through your digestive system, get broken down into the amino acids, and then you don't how's that going to put more into your body? I don't know. That's one thing that I know very little about. I just know that people do take it. And there's somewhere in town I went as well, and I saw a brochure for collagen injections. And my understanding is that some people, they want to have fuller lips, for example. I don't know this is kind of a celebrity type of thing. But it was advertising injections in the face, right? Again, something I don't know very much about, but yeah, people will do anything, right? Healthy brain, immune function. So you kind of see all the same boxes being checked off, but the big one here is collagen, and also as free radicals. What was I going to say about this? So you can see there's this kind of, this is from the textbook. I thought it was a pretty good illustration, and this is kind of really true for most of the water-soluble vitamins, right? There's sort of a minimal level that you want to have. Or is this the big level? Yeah, this is the minimal level down here. And that minimal level may vary depending on where you are in life. You know, if you're a child versus a bigger human. Sometimes pregnant women need a little bit more of certain vitamins. In the case of vitamin C, smokers need quite a bit more, or they for their health. So this is one person that sometimes is recommended taking a supplement. And my understanding is that antioxidant effect, because cigarette smoke can form free radicals, and this vitamin can help kind of scoop those up, is my understanding. The tolerable limit is massively high, and this is true with all of the water-soluble vitamins, because if you take too much, generally you just excrete it through your urine, right? So it's not usually a big deal. I'm guessing somebody tortured some rats trying to look at this thing at one point, but usually that's the case for vitamin C and the other water-soluble vitamins. Alcoholics, again, like I said, this is one that alcoholics are a little bit more likely to be vitamin C deficient as well. Let's talk about scurvy for a minute. So let's think about what happens if your collagen is not forming properly. What did I say? Skin, connective tissue, bones, those kind of things. So scurvy, you're looking at blistered skin, bleeding of the gums, teeth falling out, those kind of things. And we know tons about it because of historical reasons. And it's associated with travelers on ships. They would be at sea for long, extended periods of time. And usually the only food they had was grains or dried meat, right? And so we're getting vitamin C from fruit, fresh fruit in particular, and they were deficient. And once they figured that out, they just made sure that these guys had a supply of fresh fruit, or they would stock up on it regularly. But yeah, I don't wish scurvy on anyone, of course. Okay, so I know what some people are thinking. Vitamin C is going to prevent me having a cold. No. That myth has been around forever, as long as I can ever remember, and I know people who will never, ever, ever believe it. They pop their vitamin C pills like crazy, and there's tons of research on this thing. What did I have in my notes here? So there was the best study was shown that people that take maybe 1,000 milligrams of this may shorten their cold, by about 8%. Right? So this is taking massive levels of it, and 8%, right? So if you have a cold that lasts 3 days, you're cutting off, I don't know, an hour and a half. It's not huge, right? You can check out, I think I have a link down here, and it comes with a video. You can check it out, but this is just one of those myths that's associated with vitamin C, unfortunately. And it's not going to cure your cold. Of course, vitamin C does seem to be important for the immune system, but most of us are not at that point where we're anywhere near being deficient. So popping extra vitamin C pills, unfortunately, no. Colds suck. We wish we had something that worked for them. So vitamin C, we're talking about fresh fruits mostly, and the fresher the better, right? And if the fruits are cooked and things like that, vitamin C tends to get more damaged, and you're likely to have less vitamin C in the actual food. And a lot of things that are kind of sour tend to be higher amounts of vitamin C. Oranges and orange juice, for example, is pretty high in vitamin C. I remember high school, I think I had to do a nutrition thing for 2 days, and back then I would drink like 3 glasses of orange juice every morning and have one at dinner time. And I remember having like the amount of vitamin C I had was really high. And I can actually tell you, in high school I had way more colds than I ever had now. So that certainly didn't prevent me from getting colds. What else was I going to say about that? Yeah, not too much else to say about vitamin C. Tastes yummy. It has a nice sour taste to it, right? I don't know if anyone's ever done this, right? But there's the chewable vitamin C tablets, but the non-chewable ones, I used to stick them on my tongue and just sort of let them, dissolve, and they actually have a really nice taste to it. So that's how I know it tastes well. Okay, let's talk about the vitamin Bs. A whole bunch of these. And Some of them have numbers, some of them we don't usually use the numbers. Like I said, I'm going to be trying to use the most commonly used names for these things. And with the vitamins, the whole naming system has been complicated in that, some of them, there's some vitamins that you think, okay, where's vitamin B7, right, for example? And that's something that used to be thought of as a vitamin, then we found out it wasn't essential, and those kind of things. But what can we say about the B vitamins? A lot of these B vitamins are something that are called cofactors. So what is a cofactor? It's kind of what I was saying last day about these vitamins. A lot of them are helpers with enzymes. And the vitamin B group, we're talking about like 1,000 enzymes. So pretty much every cell and almost every bodily function has B vitamins involved in those enzymes, right? We have tons and tons of enzymes in our bodies doing all sorts of things. And the vitamin Bs are they're intimately integrated in there, helping these enzymes. You can see this little diagram here. It's trying to show you that this coenzyme has to be in the active site of the enzyme for the enzyme to function properly. So that's really what coenzymes are. You can look them up, and there's lots of videos on the internet and all that. But like I say, you can think of them as enzyme helpers. They're required for that enzyme to function. Whole bunch of them, and a lot of them go by their chemical name. So you may recognize some of them in there: riboflavin, folate, and niacin, biotin, panthenoic acid, and whatnot. Some of them, vitamin B12 and vitamin B6, usually are not called by their chemical name, but they have chemical names. If you want to use them, that's totally fine. So I'm going to kind of zip through these. There's a couple I'm going to highlight along the way. And again, deficiencies are not that common. People who are deficient tend to be deficient in a lot of other things as well. And it's not usually the vitamin D or the vitamin Bs we're worried about, because often they're more deficient in just the basics, like having enough protein in their diet or things like that. But if people are deficient, and again, this is, we know from animal studies, technically every cell is affected because these things are found all over the place. And you're looking at things like pain, skin problems, all sorts of weird things, nausea, things like that. This is just, again, from the textbook, trying to show you that it's just found all over your body, right? All sorts of body systems. And sorry if it's a little small, but it's talking about muscles, bone development, brain development, digestive system, proper function of the liver, so on and so on. So just think of vitamin Bs as thousands of roles, okay, usually involved with enzymes. So let's talk about thymine. So thymine, and you're going to see this is kind of going to be highlighted with most of the vitamin Bs, is it's going to say something about energy, right? Helping us get energy from our foods, right? So what does that mean? Well, we have all these digestive enzymes that break our food down and release energy, and the vitamin Bs are an important part of these things. Again, you can go into all sorts of detailed chemistry on this, and it's not really worth it entirely. You can see thiamine is also involved in our nervous system, and I'm not exactly sure what exactly where, but thiamine deficiency is seen sometimes, and this was detected. I think I was mentioning, I can't remember if it was this class or my other class, but this was found years ago in Asia. I believe it was China. And there's sort of a point historically where, of course, in Asia, people eat rice and have done so historically for a long, long time. And so there was a point where suddenly people started processing the rice. So if you eat the whole grain, you're getting the husk, you're getting fiber, and there's vitamins in the whole thing, right? And then there was a point where people learned how to process it and kind of get rid of the husk and just have the grain left over, right? So if you think of like white rice, that's what many of us eat. We're not eating the husk and all that. And white rice is, it's great source of starch, but in terms of vitamins, tends to have a lot less. So suddenly there was deficiency going on. And I always forget the name of this. It's called beriberi. So we're talking about lack of energy, right? There's the connection with energy, right? Shortness of breath, those kind of things, sometimes aches and pains and whatnot. And so once they figured that out, they had people starting to eat other foods and kind of get that introduced. But that was, like I said, you're looking at relatively poor people where like 90% of their diet was this rice. and suddenly they don't have that source of the crucial vitamin. Where can we get thiamine? So you can see think high fiber foods. There's some thiamine in there, so it's talking about oatmeal there, and certain cereals, and excellent sources. Apparently pork chop. What's that last one? Acorn squash. What's an acorn squash? Anyone know what an acorn squash is? My brother-in-law is totally into squash. He would probably know. Okay, riboflavin. Like I said, we're going to zip through these. Notice, there we go. Energy again, converting nutrients to energy. You kind of see this common theme with the B vitamins, right? Riboflavin, some of the same things, but also milk, found in a bit more meat products, those kind of things. What was I going to say about riboflavin? That's about it. Like I said, I'm just going to zip through these things. They're kind of a lot of similar themes, right? So niacin is energy on this list. It is, yes. So energy, energy, energy. Niacin is also, by the way, involved in nucleotides. So what does that mean? DNA and RNA. So that's kind of important, right? To have niacin in there. What was I going to say about this? There are some deficiencies that are found in niacin. Again, this is usually relatively poorly nourished people. And I was reading about this the other day, and it's talking about the symptoms, including the 4Ds. I've never heard of the 4Ds: diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and death. So sure. Again, you don't hear about this too much. But the one that I know a lot about is it being part of your nucleic acids, your DNA and RNA. Okay, where are we going to get niacin from? From all of these things down here, right? So you're looking at meat, certain cereals. There's a little bit in vegetables and fruits, mushrooms apparently a little bit, liver. You know, I don't think we all necessarily have to eat liver to get all the vitamins, but it's a good place to get things from. All right, folate. Okay, energy on there? Gotta be. It's not. I'm shocked. But folate is kind of like niacin. It's part of our nucleic acids as well. And so that one is on here. Notice it's talking about brain development. Okay, so in your fetus, well, I'm not saying you have a fetus right now, but if you're developing a fetus, right? If you're pregnant, there's a part of the nervous system called the neural tube, and that's something that basically grows into your brain and your spine and those kind of things. And so folate is something that is essential for pregnant women to have to give to their fetus. And without it, you're looking at all sorts of birth defects, sometimes malformed spinal cords, sometimes mental defects, those kind of things, depending on the deficiency. Sometimes that leads to something called Spina Bifida, which is kind of the, you know, your spine should have a nice sort of relatively straight shape, and Spina Bifida is sort of, you know, it's just not developing properly, and so it gets compressed and sometimes curved. And I actually grew up knowing a guy who was like that, and he was told when he was a baby he would probably never walk, and he could walk, but you could just tell there's something weird about the guy, right? In terms of his development, you know, he didn't walk like everyone else and all that. But it has a good end of the story. He actually became an Olympic para-athlete, which is kind of cool, despite his disabilities. So brain, DNA, and I guess apparently red blood cells. I didn't know that one. So I was going to show you, if you are planning on getting pregnant, or if you are, you're going to be recommended to get prenatal vitamins, just to make sure, right? And so there's a whole bunch out there, and you can look them up. They're all different. And what they have is, usually they have these two things in them: folic acid and iron. So you're probably thinking, what is folic acid versus folate? Again, I can show you the chemistry. It doesn't really matter. They're basically the same thing. Technically, folic acid, you could think of it as a synthetic version of folate. And so your body is just going to use it the same way, right? Iron, hopefully that one's obvious. So we need iron for blood. And when you're pregnant, you are making a lot of extra blood. and you're making that placenta, and you're trying to nourish that fetus again. So usually that's in there. You can see this one here has DHA in it. That's one of those omega fatty acids, and there's a bunch of different formulations in them. I went on the internet and I was trying to compare regular multivitamins with the prenatal vitamins. And this is kind of the funny thing about this is I actually had a hard time trying to find regular multivitamins. I found like multivitamins for men, multivitamins for elderly men, multivitamins for women, multivitamins for teenagers. Took me a while to actually find just regular adult multivitamins. But anyway, if you take a look, you can see that the folic acid is higher for the prenatal ones. So we're looking at looks like 400 micrograms for the regular ones and 1 complete milligram. So a milligram is 1,000 micrograms, by the way. So it's more than double what you would have in the regular vitamins. And again, this is just one type. I remember finding all sorts of different, and the formulations are all slightly different between all the different companies. And even Centrum, which is a major vitamin provider, like honestly, take a look in your pharmacy or grocery store. Centrum has like an entire aisle, and it's almost confusing to try to figure out, which of these, applies to who, right? Iron, you can see extra iron in this in the prenatal vitamins as well. Where do we get folate from? You can see broccoli again. Broccoli is so good for you. You can't go wrong getting more broccoli in your diet. Down here, big source, asparagus. Well, that's good. Anyway, who likes asparagus? Yeah, did you like it when you were a kid? No. Yeah, asparagus is like an adult vegetable, isn't it? Right? It's something that, just one day you discover and you're like, hey, where has this been all my life? Anyway. Vitamin B12. So vitamin B12 is essential for your hemoglobin. So you can see right on there, you got the red blood cells. And if you learn about hemoglobin, there's always vitamin B12 that comes up there. You can see we're also talking about DNA structure, nervous system, and I'm surprised energy is not on there as well, but that's another big one. I know that one of the key things to know about vitamin B12 is it's mostly in the diet. You're going to get it from animal sources. So if you are a strict vegan, this is one of the things you're trying to make sure you're getting enough of. And that's kind of on the list of things for vegans to watch out for. So vitamin D, vitamin B12, protein and iron, but those are kind of the two big ones, right? You can see here pretty much nil in all of these vegetable and fruit products, milk and meat, much higher amounts of vitamin B12. All right, a couple more here. There's vitamin B6. I'm not going to say much about vitamin B6. It's just involved in like 1,000 reactions. And you can see all of the things we were talking about already. You've got DNA, you've got energy, you've got development of a fetus, development of the brain, nervous system, check, keeps on going. It's involved in pretty much every cell in your body. So it's pretty important stuff. Deficiencies or toxicities are kind of unheard of. And where are you getting this? Very sweet sources, both plant and animal sources, which is why people are very rarely deficient in vitamin B6. What else was I going to say? There's biotin and pantothenic acid, and you can see again converting of energy. Both of these are also involved in fat metabolism as well, and something I don't really know a lot about. You can see I don't even have where you're going to get these things from. So there's a whole bunch of other compounds out there that are kind of in this gray zone of sometimes people are calling them vitamins, sometimes people are saying, well, that's not a vitamin, and I think that's where, we're at in terms of there's a little bit of scientific debate about whether some of these things are actually essential. And they're probably essential for some people and not others, right? Depending on your diet, depending on, what kind of body you have in terms of, or other things. Diabetics, for example, have slightly different nutritional needs than a regular person, elderly people, and so on. And so just throwing down a couple of these things, choline is one of them. And like I said, some people say it's essential. It's probably just essential for certain people, and there's a bit of debate about that. There's a bunch of these other things that sort of fall in that category as well, and carnitine, lipoic acid, and so on. And I'm not going to get into any details on them, but just throwing them down there. And there's other substances as well. Can't remember why I put that one down. Okay, so a few more things to say about vitamins. Do we take multivitamins or not, right? Here's my take on multivitamins, okay? And I think there's a lot of data to support this. If you're eating a balanced diet, you probably don't necessarily need them, at least regularly. And again, it kind of depends on your situation. I know people who are vegans who do take them either regularly or periodically because they're concerned about things like vitamin D and B12. But at best, if you have a healthy diet, you're probably not doing very much. That's the thing about multivitamins, despite all the marketing. At worst, some people are taking too much and could be doing them harm. So that's kind of actually where we're starting to see a lot of the advice getting, around multivitamins is we're trying to look at people who are deficient and recommend them for them. But other people, the recommendations are backing off. Unfortunately, the marketing for these kind of things is like through the roof, right? You walk into the pharmacy and boom, they're all right there, all these supplements. There's entire stores devoted to supplements and things like that. But that's kind of my take on it. You can read about it. Actually, I've read about it several times. I realized kind of looking through my reading habits, I save a lot of interesting articles, and I was looking. I was like, I didn't realize I had this many kind of put aside. But you can see that there's those are some excellently written articles on this whole thing. So if you're interested more on that, that's kind of my take on it. But what are some valid reasons for taking them? We've talked about a few of these things already, like people who are vegans may be concerned about having deficiencies in their diet. Alcoholics, smokers, sometimes there are certain vitamins that are crucial for them to get in higher doses. We talked about newborns getting that vitamin D if they're being breastfed in the winter kind of thing, and the vitamin K injection and whatnot. What else is on here? Habitual dieters. Some people are on weird diets, right, where they're not getting a little bit of everything, and so they might be insufficient in certain things. A lot more elderly people are getting recommended to have vitamins, just in terms of concerns for deficiencies and things like that. And you can see lots of other categories on there which may be applicable. So I'm not slamming multivitamins entirely. I take them once in a while, particularly when I feel like I've just eaten junk food for a few days straight, and like I'm probably deficient in something, so I'll pop one, and that's kind of the end of the story. But there's something else I was going to say about this. And the other big one is women who are childbearing. Particularly if you're vegan or something like that, you need to get that iron, that folic acid in there, and you don't want to be deficient in anything when you're trying to feed a developing human in your body. Why not to take supplements, right? Lots of good reasons there as well. This is straight out of the textbook, by the way, but hoping that supplements can help you cope with stress. I like that one. Feeling tired, right? Don't think that just taking vitamins is suddenly going to, make you alert and sharp and not groggy anymore or something like that, right? You want to build up your muscles faster without physical exercise, right? Pretty much any time when a claim is too good to be true, it usually is, unfortunately, right? That's kind of the case. Lots of people self-diagnose what's going on. There's lots of self-help books that make good or bad recommendations, particularly vitamins and supplements. There's so many books out there on self-help and whatnot that are really pushing certain supplements, and sometimes these people have the credentials to understand what they're suggesting, and sometimes they do not, unfortunately. So always, look into things, particularly if you're trying to take high doses of any of these things. What else is it going to say? I think I've probably said enough about this. You can read the chart on your own. All right, so there we go. So here's the last one, and I actually have a video on this, and I'm going to play this for you. And this is one of the big ones that kills me and drives me nuts when I hear people talk about this, is that they're going to boost their immune system. So I want to play this video for you. It's very good. It's from, what's it called, Body Stuff. Jen Gunter is a Canadian physician, and she writes all sorts of health books. Actually, a lot of it's on women's health. She's usually very good. So I'm going to play this for you right now, hopefully.
Turmeric ginger shots, elderberry syrup, vitamin C tablets. No one likes to be sick. So it's 100% understandable why we're all intrigued by products that promise to boost our immune system. The problem is that we often think about the immune system in the wrong way. We think of it like a muscle that we can strengthen by feeding it lots of antioxidants and supplements. But that's just not how the immune system works. While the immune system can be suppressed and can be less effective, for example, in people receiving chemotherapy, the reverse, strengthening the system overall, just doesn't happen. Our immune system is what protects us from the bacteria, viruses, fungi, and toxins we encounter on a constant basis. It also plays an integral part in wound healing. It's an elegant network of cells, tissues, and organs all working together. You can think of the immune system in two broad terms: innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Innate immunity means non-specific defense mechanisms, and this is our first line of protection. It helps fight off pathogens before they cause a problem. It's like a bouncer at the door of a club. The innate immunity keeps invaders out or neutralizes them shortly after entry so they don't start a fight inside. It can only recognize self, meaning what's allowed in the club, and non-self, meaning what's not allowed inside. Think the physical barriers of our skin, the hairs in our nose, the eyelashes that blink out dirt, even vaginal discharge that prevents infections. Now, if a pathogen does manage to get past the first line of defense, we have another layer of protection, the adaptive immune system, which is more complex and targeted than our bouncer. The adaptive immune system responds to antigens. Antigens are unique proteins on the surface of pathogens, which helps identify what kind of pathogen it is, kind of like a name tag. Your immune system is constantly reading name tags, and when one is recognized as being on the no entry list, the adaptive immune system creates special immune cells to attack, which are specialized white blood cells called lymphocytes. Here's what's really amazing. Our immune system remembers this process. So the next time we're exposed to that same pathogen, our immune system recognizes it and remembers how to respond. While we're not sure how many different antigens we can recognize, some scientists think that we produce over 1 billion antibodies. But the important thing to remember is that our immune system has many different parts playing many different roles. That's what makes this concept of boosting so problematic. When people say boost the immune system, what do they even mean? Do they mean boost the histamine that's released when exposed to poison ivy? Well, that would make you itch a lot more. Do they mean supercharge your T and B cells? Might that lead your body to attack its own cells, as we see with autoimmune conditions? Instead of thinking of a muscle that you can strengthen with one simple exercise, a better analogy may be a garden. Your immune system has many components, just like a garden has many kinds of plants. Each plant needs just the right amount of sun, shade, and water. Too much sun might help one plant, but destroys another. Increasing any single element can throw off the balance of the ecosystem overall. If you're getting all the nutrients you need from a healthy, balanced diet, taking more of a single vitamin won't help your immune system function any better overall. For some vitamins, if you take in more than you need, your body will just get rid of the excess as waste. Vitamin supplements are only needed if you have a true, real deficiency. In fact, some studies tell us that vitamins and supplements, when they're not medically needed, may have negative effects. Things can go wrong with our immune system, for sure, like allergies or autoimmune conditions and failure to catch abnormal cells. But the reasons for each of these things are complex and often not fully understood, and they certainly won't be solved by some immune-boosting miracle pill. There is, however, one thing that has been shown again and again to be incredible for your immune system: vaccines. Vaccines are truly genius. They contain a weakened or inactive part of a pathogen, like the flu, that includes its antigen name tag. They trigger the body into making antibodies without needing to get sick from an illness first. Instead of boosting the immune system overall, they give the system exactly what it needs to respond to a specific pathogen quickly and aggressively. So
yeah, she's worth it checking out. She's got a podcast or two, and I think I showed this video earlier on when we were talking about the body and immune system. Okay, let me just see here. Yeah, okay. So just to kind of finish up on vitamins, right? Eat good variety of food. You're probably in good shape. You know, if you're concerned about deficiencies, you know, maybe something worth looking into. Everybody's body is different and medical situation different. You know, vitamins are important, obviously. So quiz number, where are we at, 7? Quiz 7, I haven't posted, or I will have it posted today. I don't have it posted yet. And that'll be next week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears and let's see how much time we have. I want to talk about assignment number 3 and tell you what that's about. I just posted it this morning, so it's on Moodle. You can take a look at that. I'm going to go through the details now.